One quick PSA about the shop. We have another Crowdcast event on Saturday, June 20th at noon. We're going to talk about wool, how it's harvested, and then we're also going to talk with a dyer, so a sheep shearer and a dyer. The book is raw material, and the yarn is from, Jen, where's the yarn from? Put it in the link. Anyway, that's the PSA for now. Oh, we also have an Earth, Wind, and Fire craft fair on June 27th. We're blocking off North Chicago. It will be Sincere Sheep is the yarn. We're blocking off North Chicago to North Kellogg for an outdoor craft fair. The crafts center around natural materials. So anything made with earth, wind, or fire. I'm going to turn it over to Sephora and stop talking.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you. I actually just realized how perfect this is. I'm Sephora from Reading is Resistance. Just going to say our little thing and then introduce Tori. I'm so excited to see her on screen. So Reading is Resistance, our mission is to create opportunities for parents and teachers to start or expand inclusive libraries and reading experiences for kids and youth. The whole point of that is to seed deeper conversations around action around racial equity. So that's the mission. And Tori is here to talk to us about art and activism. And I just realized that the bookstore, Two Rivers, it also has a yarn store, and how perfect you are as a person where these things converge, because you also make things with yarn and
Yes.
and also have the art and activism piece. So it's so perfect. Just super happy to have you here. Just as background, Tori and I met, I don't know how long ago, some
Years
ago, people at Merrillhurst, and became friends, and like just kind of kept in touch throughout time. And I'm just so thrilled to see you here. Such a
Yes.
So I don't know if you want to do your intro, but that's probably best. You should introduce yourself.
Sure. So yeah, I'm Tori Force, and I'm an art therapist. I live up in Seattle and work in community mental health in sort of South Seattle, Auburn. And I work with kiddos. So I work with people from the age, my youngest was 4, and I've had 18-year-olds, and even some parenting stuff. So yeah, and I have always been a creator, artistic expresser, like you said, knitting and crocheting, but also painting and block printing, and just anything I can do to sort of do art and send it into the world. So that is me.
Yeah, when Quincy was little, Tori crocheted a Shrek hat for him for Halloween.
Yes.
Super cute. So we've connected in that way too. Yeah, I appreciate seeing all of your art and all of the information you put out into the world. I think that's one of the things that also helps me connect and our family connect, so it really resonates a lot. We're here to talk about art and activism. And I do have some books to showcase later on, but I think a lot of people are wondering, like, in 2 ways, how can we use art with our kiddos to like help the self? Because I know that in my household, there is a lot of anxiety right now, both because of COVID, also because of police violence against Black and brown bodies. It's scary, and we talk to about it. Like, as social justice folks, we don't want to not talk to our kids. Our kids are 9 and 10. And I think people should be having these conversations. And at the same time, I'm like, are we feeding them enough to also like find peace and reflection? So there's that piece of it. So I don't know if you can say something on that first, and then maybe we can talk about art that also goes outward.
Yeah. So when I was thinking about coming here, I thought about art and how, like you said, there's an internal piece to art and helping ourselves. And then there's also the external. How do we put it out there? How do we show others through our art? So the internal part, I think the first thing that I always tell people to do is to just start drawing, start painting, whatever it is, and not focus on what you're trying to create, but just make something, whatever that looks like. And then through that, you might find some, I don't know, insight or relaxation, or things like that. And even just simple as coloring pages, right? Like the motion of coloring and focusing on a coloring page, like releases endorphins and makes you feel calm, and it switches your gears, right? Like there's a distraction part to making art. And I actually, just the other day, I follow a drawer, cartoonist type person, and she released a Black Lives Matter digital coloring book, with different Black activists and prominent figures. And she's donating all the money to Black or NAACP, the Loveland Project, and one other organization. But stuff like that, right? Get a digital coloring book, sit down, color some pages, talk about the people that you're coloring, and you're both learning and growing, but also doing that relaxation of just coloring and being in the moment. So her name is Maddie B with 5 B's on Instagram. And her website is MaddieBB.com. So you guys can go try to find that.
Okay.
But yeah, I think just the art of stopping and doing is kind of where to start. And then whatever comes. And I think one of my favorite things about art is when a kid tells you, look, I drew an elephant, but you look at it and you're like, it's clearly a flower, but you never correct the kid. You're like, yeah, that's an elephant. And you just go with it. It's the one thing that's so pure and never questioned. What you drew is what you drew. And I think that can be sort of an empowerment tool as well.
Yeah, for sure. I also like what you're saying about kind of aligning values, where like we have to counter, first of all, like thinking about art as not a product and thinking about a process for us is something that I think like dominant culture, it does not teach us that. So that's like an undoing of some of that culture in ourselves, which is really nice. And then also like thinking about where we, like when we are purchasing or supporting, how we can support Black artists, Indigenous artists, like where our money goes to. It's like that's part of that undoing of the way that capitalism should work. Kind of like showing our kids on so many different levels, sort of how to undo some of the harm and to like self-care and community care. Like that.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom's an artist too. She always used to say, tell me about your drawing.
Yeah. Because once they tell you, then you're like, that's what it is. We're on board.
Never guess what it is. It's terrible.
Yeah.
We'll find that coloring book link. That's a great, I'm definitely going to get that for our kids. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. And she's a white artist, but this is her way of saying like, I can use my platform and I can do something other than, just posting, this is terrible, but like, this is the step further. I can use my art and I can donate the money. So, I respect people like that recognize like I have to do something and this is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, allyship and comradeship and community is what we all have to find. And that's a good example of that. So that's awesome. I have a question too about like the outward facing art. So again, like our family is an art family, and we do connect through visual art and music in a lot of ways with other people. And we also our impulse is to like join in protests whenever it's happening, but our concerns around health and also our kids' level of anxiety is not allowing us to do that.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons we're kind of leaning on art even more, like as a way to emote out, but not have to be like physically present. But also in protest situations, like we drove around Portland, and I'm sure this is the same where you live, but there's like amazing art happening everywhere. And I don't know if you can say something about like that making process or why that kind of art is important. And like why making it is important, like to contribute to it?
Yeah. So the first thing that came to my mind when you messaged me was a thing that I love to do is when I'm out on a walk, I pick up some rocks and then I take them back to my home and I paint something on them. And then when I go on a walk again, I redistribute them for someone else to find. And I think of course, it's the act of painting rocks and figuring out what to put on there, little like helpful messages or whatever. But it's also the act of never knowing where that rock ends up. And I think sometimes that unknowing in activism, right? You're fighting for your loved ones that you might know, but you're also fighting for a bunch of people you don't know. And you're fighting for the greater good without possibly ever seeing the greater good be benefited from all of it. And so I love just leaving these rocks. You never know who's going to pick them up. You never know who needed it that day. And it's just a really easy way to feel like you're putting it out there. And then, of course, also exercise, going on a walk, right? So that's, I think, one of the like quickest and most fulfilling maybe activities. I did bring some rocks that I have painted. I have this little landscape, and I made a Black Lives Matter one. I'll leave that somewhere. And then you are important. It's backwards maybe. And just a smiley face. Simple stuff. And thinking about what to write on them can be this sort of family event, and seeing each other's rocks. Oh, I like that you put a star on that one. I like a heart on that one, and just sort of that collective thing. And some people put hashtags on them and stuff to try to get people to like post when they find them and spread the joy and stuff. And that's another step if you wanted to take it. But I think that intention of what to put on the rocks and then leaving them out and knowing that you may never know where they end up, sort of lets you sit in that unknowingness, but still feeling like you're doing something. And then, of course, just like posters and windows and like maybe you can't go out and do a march, but you could still make a poster and you could still put it in your window. And now everyone knows that house feels that way, right? And I can say, as a person of color, as a Black woman, when I drive past houses with Black Lives Matter signs in the window, like it's just this fulfillment and solidarity. I don't know that person. I'll never know that person. But just seeing that sign shows that, okay, I'm not alone, and that person's with me and that person's with me, and it makes a big difference. And the same with the murals, people drive around, and art is meant to make you think and feel. And, so experiencing that, especially together, is really important. So
yeah, we drove around in the car because the kids felt like not anxious in the car. So we drove to Portland to see everything, and we saw people painting. We saw people taking photographs of stuff and all sorts of messages. And it felt really good. Our neighbors across the street also put up a Black Lives Matter sign in their window, and we immediately all noticed it. And we're like, they just moved in. So we're like, it was just like it felt like soothing. It felt comforting, and like, we don't know them yet, but now we want to. And
that like step of knowing that most likely you're safe with that neighbor, and instead of the moments of like at the beginning when you're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it's really nice. And I think it makes the kids feel neighborhood. Like, we saw more signs out when we went on our walk this week. And it felt good. It felt like people are really like, even though it's a small thing, one of my favorite authors is Adrienne Marie Brown, and her emergent strategy book is like, I read it all the time, and I love her so much. And she has this quote about the small things are the big things. And I really believe that, especially when parenting, when like I kind of want to like tear everything down, and but I'm also like nurturing these small people who have these thoughts that need to be like, you know, anxiety is real. I have it too, and we have to tend to our mental health, our like relationship and community, all those things. So those small things are the big things. That's like the change in action. So I love, and I love the rock thing. I actually had to put one time little that said like, take me. Cause sometimes people don't know what to do. Like, so I like that idea of just leaving little signs, around. It's great.
Yeah.
I wonder if anyone who's in the audience has, done any acts of artist activism. I know I've seen some of you out protesting with some awesome signs. We actually have a friend, I'm going to leave this as another example of like a way to nurture community, and include everyone, was that she said that she would take our signs to a rally for our kids. She takes them with her when she goes, and then it takes a picture of them being there. And I just like, that was such a beautiful, like maybe we can't be there physically right now because of some obstacles, but being there in spirit and just like, just being so thoughtful to say like, we're going to expand what we think of as being there together.
Yeah. I've had a friend just, if you can't make it to a women's march, she'll write your name on her sign so that you're there. Right. And then she takes a picture and shows like all these women were here with me. And that, it's a similar solidarity, right? I'll stand with you and march with you, but I'll also march for you when you can. I think that's very important.
I love that. I needed that. That's so beautiful. I don't know. Books that like artists, do you look at other people's art to get inspired? We definitely have some books I wanted to share out with people. And I know that like as art people, we're drawn to other people's art and like use it to inspire us. One of the books that I really love is this book called Magic Trash, because it's about an artist who like transformed a neighborhood with things that were just found. And anyone can, again, it's kind of like the rocks, like you can make anything that you have into art. So I highly recommend a book like this, especially like this summer, we're all going to be probably not in a lot of camps, and you know, learning how to make things with what we have and where we are and sharing them out, I think is really important. And I don't know if you've seen this book, but this Watson is so beautiful, and the main character in here is a collage artist and uses collage as a way of like working through identity and other things in her life. And I recommend this to everyone. This is like a beautiful book. We have a list on the website of different books that might be inspiring in that way. I don't know if there are any artists that like come to mind for you of people to look up. We've been looking at a lot of like Black Panther movement protest art, which is really awesome. And then just local people. And then I know that there is, I'm trying to remember, I mean, there's so much art happening right now. It's just like,
it is overwhelming, but in a very good way. It's pretty magnificent. I just kind of, I don't know, see art everywhere, inspired by everything. But there's one Instagram artist, I don't know how to actually pronounce their Instagram handle because it's French, but Sacree Frangine, that's my try. But they make these sort of profile images. It's people, but they don't have eyes or facial expressions or anything. They're just the shape of their face and the color of their skin, and they're just really beautiful. So I've liked a lot of her stuff, and it's been sort of passed through. I've seen them at marches and stuff like that. It's sort of blowing up with Black Lives because she paints a lot more Black people, darker skin tones and things like that than other artists. So she's sort of blown up. I guess it's an artist duo, but I just sort of find things and feel inspired by nature or whatever. One book for children that I really like is called a little radical, the ABCs of Activism. And it's by Danica and Jason Russell. And each letter is a thing. A is, action, and B is boycott. And it's just a great book to just, choose a letter. You could do a letter a day, and you could talk about them with your kids or whatever. And it's all rhymey. It's like a Dr. Seuss book, kind of. It's just one of my favorites for sure. And I actually took a picture of the C, because C is for create. So I will read that one real quick here. C is for create. All that's yet to be. Make something new. Set your dreams free. Music and dance, film and design can make us feel feelings and change many minds. When you're inspired, make something great. We color the world every time we create. So each letter is like that. And it's just really cool to see that activism isn't one thing, right? It's all these different areas. And some people are marching, and some people are making art, and some people are donating money or time or energy. So it's just, how everyone has a spot they can fit in. And like you said, like the small is the big. And even if you're just doing one letter, you're still doing that letter. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that's a great way to wrap it up. I'm so happy to have you here. We see Christine back with us.
Yeah, I was going to say two things. This sort of spurred in me. I'm a constant idea person, but I thought we could maybe do a community project where the kids color or draw an African-American person, an author, an artist, a politician, and we just distribute them across the business district,
Yeah.
Like in my mind, I see this like accordion style display in the bottom of the windows, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's why I popped on. I was like, I have an idea.
No, I love it. And I've discovered that you can often just Google a person's name, coloring page, and you'll most likely find one. It's pretty amazing.
That's probably true.
Yeah. And then that, coloring page has a few African-American people. And the only one I know for sure that's in there is the Obamas. There's a coloring page of the Obamas that she drew. So, and I suggested to her to try to get a variety of Black people, like artists and authors and political figures and, kind of the whole gamut, because you can get kind of stuck with, when you think about prominent Black people, you're like MLK and Rosa Parks, and those are great, but then, widening it to like, there's Black authors and artists and musicians and, more than Beyonce. We love Beyonce, but there's more than Beyonce, and just sort of remembering that like Black people are everywhere. Like we're all doing all the things.
It would be great to do like, the Black Panther movement was so strong when it was happening. And I feel like it's evaporated out of our historical knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
It would be really good to maybe pick some of those prominent members, and when I worked at the University of California Press, we did a book called Black Against the Empire. I think that was the title. I forgot about that piece of history until we worked on that book. And I was like, why don't we talk about that part of history? Because, they were really fighting for what we're fighting for now.
Yeah.
And did some like amazing communal schooling and all sorts of things. Like, I love that is also something I'm seeing a lot, like communal gardening. We have a lot of that in our neighborhood too, but groups are really coming together to, when you were talking, Tori, it just reminded me also that like protest and activism is not just about like our expressing our discontent and our anger and our fear, but also our joy and beauty. And I think that's one of the lovely things that art can capture is like the power of that, and to celebrate to celebrate that in our community is a really big deal. So
yeah,
I'm glad to see more of that happening.
Do we have any questions from the chat area?
No. Sam, I yell it. What's going on?
No. Okay.
Everyone, really.
There's a link. Zipporah, I don't see a link for Reading as Resistance in the chat. You might want to put one in there. And then there's a link for the books. And Tori put a link in there for Maddie B. Go.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here, Tori. I'm just glad to see your face in action and know you're out doing such great things in the world and reminding us of some of the stuff that we can all do together. So thanks, and thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me. It was awesome to be here, and I'm looking forward to all the future resistance and rising up. And I will say, this painting I have here behind me, did it a couple weeks ago. It's sort of my way of feeling the feelings that are happening right now. But I am going to make it into stickers because I feel like it should be plastered everywhere. So when those stickers are available, I'll send that to you.
Or window clings.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like it's colorful but powerful, and it's kind of important to maybe be everywhere.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll help you in that effort.
Podcast records this for us so we can share it out again if there are people who are interested or want to go back to hear what we talked about.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I love this venue. Okay, well, thanks so much, everybody. And I'll see you next Thursday.
Okay. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.